I actually wanted to talk to you today about something that is incredibly important, and I'm going to do it off the cuff. So there's no rehearsed script, there's no plan in my mind. I think it's just to send out a message that is incredibly important, especially at this time of year when mental health should be at the forefront of everybody's minds. In this video, I'm going to be talking about not only the importance of taking care of your own mental health, but also being in a position where you could potentially even save the lives of other people. And it's all stemmed from something that happened to me today. I would say even within this past week. As any of you know, as the winter months roll in, it gets harder for a lot of people because the weather is changing, the days are a lot shorter, and weather does have a massive impact on somebody's mood. I mean, I'm sure you've realized it when the day is sunny and it's a nice warm day, not necessarily extremely hot, but like a nice warm day and it's sunny, your mood is much better. Whereas if it's a dark day, overcast, it's raining, or it's very cloudy, for the majority of people, if it stays like that for a long period of time, it can be overwhelming and it can really affect your mood and give you the winter blues. And the winter blues is a term that was coined because of the weather and because of this situation where we're not getting enough sunlight. And it's been like this for, I would say around a couple of weeks now. On and off we get a bit of sunshine, but the days are significantly shorter than what they usually are. And like everybody else at this period of time, we all struggle. We all find it more difficult to be more motivated, to be happier and more settled in life. That's something that is, I would say, normal, and it really shouldn't be, but it is normal around this time of year. And that's why it's so important that we make an extra effort, not only for ourselves but for other people during this period of time, that we are actually doing what we can to be happy. Not just to get by every single day, but to actually try and be happy. And I know it's a difficult task, it's incredibly hard. And some days all you can do is just get by. Sometimes all you can do is just get up and make your bed and go downstairs. Even that's a big accomplishment. And that's completely fine. Absolutely fine. It's just about finding that motivation and passing that motivation on to others. Because as you know, that if you are struggling, then other people will definitely be struggling too. So it's important that we take care of each other. So I actually wanted to share with you a very quick story, and it's not something that a lot of people would even consider significant. But for me, it really kind of left an impression in my mind, and things like this nearly always leave an impression in my mind. But it's when you're having like a really tough day, or even like a tough week or month, and you're really struggling, your mood is not where you want it to be, that things like this can really impact it. And I actually want to share two examples today, not just one. I'm going to share how two very different things occurred and how they impacted me in two very different ways. And I would love to hear more from you, and if you've experienced something very similar to this. But for me, I'm going to start off with my first example. Was a couple of days ago. I was out shopping, and I got a bit hungry, and I thought to myself, there's a food vendor here, and I've bought from him before, maybe I'll buy something again. And I was just kind of looking at his menu just standing there. It was outdoors, so there were people coming and going and people on their bikes. As I'm kind of standing looking at this menu, a guy literally rode towards me on his bike, and he's swearing. He wasn't swearing at me, but he just said, the F word really loud, or F this. As our eyes kind of locked, he gave me he looked at me like as to say, what are you looking at me for? For me, who'd already be having like a tough day, something like that actually just upset me and made it worse. And I just thought to myself that I don't even think this guy realizes that by doing that one little look, for no reason, literally no reason, just giving me that one look of like kind of, what are you looking at? It really made me feel worse than better. And a lot of you are probably thinking, but why are you letting this affect you, etc, etc, he's just being foolish. And I understand all of that, but when you're already going through a difficult time, when you already have a lot on your plate, when maybe you're not feeling your best self, which happens to absolutely everybody, we're all human at the end of the day, and then somebody does something like that, it's massively going to impact how you feel. And it's something that's kind of stuck with me the rest of the day. And I was actually going to go and do some other things, and I just kind of went home. I'm like, I don't want to deal with people like that. So I kind of just went home. Now, to contrast that, something that happened today when I actually went out shopping again, and it was just for home, stuff for home, like toothpaste and stuff. But I did the one thing that I nearly always do, and I think a lot of people do, is when they go into a shop, they will not take a basket because they think, oh, I'm only going in for one thing, and then they discover other things that they want, and then they're just going to pick up a million things. So I actually went and did exactly that. I didn't take a basket. I walked around the shop and I found other things like mouthwash and stuff that I thought, oh, you know, these are good things, they're useful. So I picked up so much stuff that it was like up to my chin. So I'm like trying to hold it like a baby and up to my chin, trying my best not to drop it. As I got to the line where we were going to pay, the woman in front of me, she actually turned to look at me, and she could see I was like up to here with things, and she just kind of went, go in front. And I'm like, really? Like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, absolutely, just go in front. And she didn't have that many things in her basket, but she let me go in front because she could see I was struggling. So actually my things were going to take longer than hers because I had a lot more stuff than she did. But because she could see that I was struggling, she just kind of ushered me forward, and I was just so grateful. I dropped everything on the counter and I was just thanking her profusely, and then as I was putting things down, I dropped a couple of things and she just helped me pick them up and put them back. And she's like, and I was just like, I'm so sorry. And she's like, no, don't be sorry. That actually made me feel great. And when I actually left the shop, I felt so good that I actually felt like, oh, someone's been really nice to me today. So I was smiling. My mood was uplifted. I actually wanted to go out of my way to help other people because she had done that for me. So that one act actually influenced me to kind of pay it forward almost. Even if it's something small, like as I'm pulling out and I give somebody else way so they can go before me in a line or something, in the car or wherever. These tiny things, it just made me want to pay it forward because somebody had done something which in their mind was so insignificant, and it probably added another, I would say, 3 to 4 minutes to her day. But for me, it was like a really big deal because I was really struggling holding all of these things. So it's lovely that somebody actually cared enough about me to just let me forward, and they didn't even know who I was. So the reason that I'm telling you these stories is because I want you to understand just how important it is to be kind, not only to ourselves, but to other people. And I know that it sounds so simplistic. It's the tiny little things that we do that really impact somebody else. That one little smile, that one holding the door open, or, you know, like this lady didn't let me in front of her in the till because she could see I was struggling. These things that we do really can impact other people. Just like it can impact other people in a happy way, it can impact other people in a negative way. If we are in a bad mood, I'm not saying this gives anybody a license, because it absolutely does not, to be meaner to other people and we give them a scowl or we push past them or we're rude to them. Actually what we're doing is we're just making their day worse, and we don't know if this person is already struggling so much in life, and I've just made it so much more difficult for somebody else if I behave that way. And the majority of people out there, all they want is to feel like somebody cares. Even if it's a stranger, just that somebody cares. And just like I'm giving you these examples of small things that you can do in everyday life to help maybe a stranger, what we often do is we don't realize that the people who are closest to us need just as much, if not even more, care. Especially if it's a family member, we think, oh, it's okay if I'm a bit rude to them, or if it's okay if I can yell and scream at them a little bit because they're my family. And we can do this with our family members because we feel as though we know them, we're a bit more comfortable with them, and we don't need to do the niceties. But we can actually really impact their day too. that leads me on to my next point, which is often something that really goes amiss for a lot of people. And I'm sure that we've had people do this to us, or maybe even we're guilty of this, is where we just haven't been keeping in touch. I don't think people understand the importance of asking how somebody is. And I don't mean like asking on the surface, like, hey, how are you? And it becomes something that's so part of our day-to-day lives that we don't actually think about it. We're just like, hey, how are you? Okay. And they're just like, fine. And then we just move the conversation on. But what we don't actually do is, no, actually ask, no, how are you? Like, genuinely, how are you? And something that I wanted to share with you guys is a point that was made very recently. And I think it's a brilliant point, is that I want you to actually reach out to somebody that you really care about, maybe that you haven't heard from in a while, or maybe that you talk to on a regular basis even. And I want you to actually ask them how they are. And when they tell you something like fine, which is like the general response from everybody, I want you to ask, no, I mean, really, how are you? How is life? How has everything been? Are you feeling okay? And I want you to ask them basically this question again, because often the first time we just ignore it and we just kind of play it as a nicety. Whereas if you ask the question again, you can actually elicit some very truthful answers from people. And sometimes all people are looking for is for somebody to actually ask them how they actually are feeling. Oftentimes we don't like to share it from ourselves because we don't want to be a burden on somebody else. And this is not the right way of thinking, but a lot of times a lot of us feel this way. And I know I've felt this way, is I don't want to share my feelings because another person has better things to do in their day, and they don't want to hear my story and me sobbing and crying. But I tell you now that they would rather hear you talking about your feelings and exactly how you are feeling inside, no matter how overwhelmed you are feeling. They would rather hear that than to not have you there. A lot of times, hindsight is 50-50. We look back and just asking that one simple question of, how are you, genuinely, can actually save someone's life. Because like I said before, sometimes we really need to prompt somebody because they don't want to feel like a burden by telling you how they're feeling. And I've seen this countless times working in mental health, that people don't want to share how they're feeling from themselves because they don't want to be a burden, because they're ashamed of how they feel, because they have an image that they want to maintain, or because no one's really ever even asked them. That's why it's so important that we ask. And we genuinely ask each other with curiosity, and we listen when somebody speaks to us. And you'll be surprised that somebody that you might think is, oh, they're so happy and bubbly and they make everybody laugh, could be feeling terrible inside. They could be feeling overwhelmed. They could be feeling like anxious, depressed, lonely. They could even be feeling like they can't go on, but they're not going to tell you themselves. So it actually takes a bit of prompting just to show, like I said before, that somebody cares. That I care about what you feel. I care about the fact that maybe I haven't heard from you. Maybe you've been quieter than normal. Maybe I know that you've gone through something like a breakup, or that family situation has changed, a job situation has changed. And I just need to kind of reach out and just give you space to just talk about how you feel about this. And I know sometimes we don't do this because we feel like we're prying on somebody, but I can tell you now that it's better for you to do that and for the other person to feel like you're prying than to have regret about never asking, and then God forbid something goes terribly wrong and you never get a chance to speak to this person again. So I very, very much encourage you today to just reach out. One text message is all it takes. And if you ask somebody twice and they say, no, I'm great, then fantastic. That's great too. At least you show them that you cared, and it's going to make their day feel good. That somebody showed them that they care about them. It's still something I very much recommend. It's still a very good thing to do. And you'll be surprised. Some people are actually going to open up to you and you won't even realize that they were struggling as much as they were. And sometimes it's not about giving somebody solutions. It's just about listening to how they feel and if they need help, letting them ask for it without feeling like they're going to be a burden to somebody, or if they're too shy to ask or too embarrassed to ask. So that's what I want to leave you with today in this video, and I want to hear your thoughts. I really do. I want to hear your stories about how somebody maybe made your day better or made your day worse. Even just share if you did have this experience where you reached out to somebody, just what they said to you. What was the reaction? And I would love to hear from you, because if we can actually just listen to other people's stories about how it really worked for them, it can encourage other people to do the same thing. So I'm going to love you and leave you with this message, and I absolutely hope you have the most lovely day and take care of yourself. You absolutely matter, and thank you so much for watching this video.